Good afternoon, Iowa. My name is John Noble with Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, and this is CCI-TV, the Coronavirus Report. The novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19 is still spreading across Iowa and the United States. According to the Harvard Global Health Initiative, 8 Iowa counties currently have unchecked community spread of the virus. The remainder of the state is experiencing what's known as accelerated spread. Iowans are doing what we can to take care of ourselves and our neighbors during this crisis, but it appears our governor is missing in action. Even with this concerning uptick in new cases, Governor Kim Reynolds is refusing to issue a statewide face covering policy to protect vulnerable Iowans. Iowans know we need to mask up Iowa, even if Governor Kim Reynolds won't. Just this weekend, CCI member and nurse Kathy Glosson called on Governor Reynolds to mask up Iowa in the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Public health experts have said, until we have a vaccine, a universal face covering policy is the only way we can stop the spread in Iowa and across the nation. That's why it's so disappointing that Governor Reynolds consistently puts profit ahead of public health and refuses to implement this common sense solution. Fortunately, Iowa does have leaders who have chosen a better way forward. Earlier today in Muscatine, Mayor Diana Broderson stepped up to the plate and issued a mask requirement for the city. Here at Iowa CCI, we applaud Mayor Broderson's actions as a positive step forward in protecting Muscatine and ultimately protecting all of Iowa. Mike Baxter, a CCI member and independent family farmer from Muscatine, spoke up to support the mayor's decision yesterday. Said Baxter, "Until the numbers go down, I think it's a smart thing. Protecting people who aren't asking to get sick makes sense." Members of the faith community in Muscatine are also supporting a mask up order. For more on that, we go to a clip from Pastor Ryan Downing, who preached this morning at Muscatine's Faith United Church of Christ on why we need to mask up Iowa. Pastor Ryan?
There have been and still are good reasons why so many of us have changed our routines and our habits over these past few months. And those reasons still exist, even as we bask in summer's warmth and glow. Even so, I know just how frustrating it can sometimes be to continue living life in altered ways. However, if there's any one thing that just about every single person can do to help slow the spread of the virus that is affecting all of us, all of our lives, if there's one thing that we can do to slow the virus and to show respect for others, and to perhaps even save others from falling ill or even worse, from dying, it is with one simple, easy act. Whenever you are out in public, wear a mask. Practice safe social distancing and wear a mask. Simple as that. You know, oftentimes after church, one of you will come up to me afterwards and say, "Well, that was a nice sermon, Pastor, but you know, I think you're preaching to the choir." Now, I think this might be one of those sermons. But nevertheless, when we compare the ease with which we humans can lapse into carelessness with how Jesus calls us to have the courage to care for others, I feel compelled to maybe give you, the choir, a new tune, perhaps, to share with others. Because as Jesus reminds us, the time for doing what is right and the time to have the courage to care is always now. Now.
Thanks so much, Pastor Ryan. In this moment of crisis, people of all faiths and none all across Iowa are stepping up to put the needs of their neighbors first. And I'll say it is so inspiring to see strong community leadership in response to this pandemic. For more on the leadership that we need at this moment, I'm joined by phone by Mayor Diana Broderson, who issued a mask requirement for the city of Muscatine, Iowa earlier today. Mayor Broderson, thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Tell me, what made you decide to require mask usage in Muscatine? What was the process that you put together to make this decision?
Well, I've studied the data every day on the coronavirus in Iowa since it started, and specifically how it relates to Muscatine. And of course, things were escalating and peaking, and everybody was shut down and stayed home. And then as things began to open up, then we were all asked to social distance and wear a mask if we couldn't. And that was all just put on the people. Well, what I have seen in our community is that a majority, or I guess I wouldn't say a majority, many individuals are not following those recommendations. And as a result, our numbers are starting to creep back up. And certainly the numbers of our surrounding communities are escalating very quickly. And I wanted to see what could be done to prevent us from taking that terrible path where more and more people become infected with the virus, and our communities and our economy needs to shut back down again. It's not anything that anybody wants. And so I reached out to our local healthcare community. Certainly, I'd already been in communication with them throughout this, but the recommendations were, let's do something about people not following the recommendations for social distancing and face coverings. The governor's proclamation is just recommending these prevention methods, but when they're not followed, there hasn't been any teeth in there for law enforcement or for anyone to be able to make sure that that is happening. This is a way that I found that we could impact that. We could impact the health and safety of our each individual citizen as well as our business community as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what you're laying out here is what we've been hearing public health experts whose advice you've been relying on. We've been hearing them say for a long time, right? To protect our communities, to protect the economy, what we absolutely need is a data-driven, science-driven approach. So if other city and county leaders are considering that data-driven, science-driven approach, if they're considering a universal face covering policy in their county or their city, what advice would you have for other leaders?
I would have them make sure to team up with their local health care providers, their public health, their local physicians. I had with me read the proclamation today, our director of public health for Muscatine County, a local physician, where we could actually talk to the people and explain to them, our numbers aren't terrible right this minute. If we wait till they are, it's going to be too late. People will be sick, people will die, and businesses will close. We have an opportunity to address every one of those items if we are proactive and if we put some enforcement teeth in these mandates for social distancing and face coverings when in public.
Yeah, I think it's really that proactive, strong leadership that you've shown to the folks in Muscatine, to folks across Iowa. Unfortunately, it feels like that's what we're lacking at a state level. One example of that would be Tom Miller, the Attorney General of Iowa, who is claiming that mayors don't have the authority to issue mask requirements. But you've pretty clearly pointed to a provision in the Iowa Constitution that allows you to do that. It allows you to step up and protect your local residents. Tell us a little bit more about that provision, about its importance in a moment of crisis like this one.
So the Iowa Constitution provides for home rule, which means that each individual community can do what they need to do to protect their own community as long as they don't violate or order something in opposition to a current state law. And as a result, this is something that each community can decide. Mayors have the authority by statute to take control of their city in an emergency situation and make whatever mandates and whatever orders need to be done in order to provide for the health and safety of their community.
Yeah, I think it really is that local leadership that's been so important in this moment. That's allowed us to see time and time again that local leaders step up. Right, this provision, what it lets us know, I think, is that local leaders know what's best for local communities. I think that's an important thing for us all to remember in this moment. But with that, Iowa CCI is also calling for the Mask Up movement to go statewide, right? To start with these important initiatives like you're doing, but ultimately to be a statewide universal face covering policy that has that strength that you were talking about, but also that has that people-centered approach. Unfortunately, it's not something we've seen from the governor's office. Why do you think the governor or state leaders have been so reluctant to act on a universal face covering policy?
I don't really have the answer to that. I don't know why. Um, I know that I believe it would be better if it came from a larger group. Our business community, our individuals are looking for that leadership. And when I didn't see that coming, nothing was coming down from the state except for recommendation, recommendation, recommendation. I have businesses and individuals in our community contacting me every single day saying, Mayor, these people aren't social distancing. These people aren't doing face covers. What can we do? What can we do? And I have to keep telling them nothing really, because the governor just made it a recommendation, not a mandate. And they're disheartened. And by the same token, I hear from businesses now who are just ecstatic and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, Mayor, for doing this. Because here's what we're faced with: each individual business wishes to protect their staff from customers spreading the virus to them. Now, their staff can put on masks, but when the customers come into their store without a mask, it's putting their employees.
And it does look like we just lost the connection with Mayor Broderson there. But I think that is a great example, everything she had to say about the importance of stepping up to protect your local community. That's something we've seen her do. That's certainly something we are hoping to see other folks do. So I'll definitely say we are very grateful to Mayor Broderson for the leadership
And,
that she's shown in this moment. Mayor Broderson, I see you're coming back in for us here. We just lost you for a quick second.
oh, I'm
I
sorry.
You're
I'm
all right.
sorry.
You had some great talking points. There's some great things to say about the importance of protecting businesses and protecting the local community. So maybe I'll just leave it here with what are the next steps for you, for Muscatine? How do you plan to keep that people-centered approach, that pro-community approach at the center of your response going forward?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head just a bit ago when you said everything has to be data and science driven. Our healthcare experts, all of them, from local to the CDC, are clearly saying masks work. What else do we need to know? That is going to allow us to heal and move forward and limit the spread of the virus and keep our communities open for business. It's a no-brainer to me. There's My duty is to protect the people and the economy of my community. And if I have a tool, a proven, effective, scientific tool that will help me do that, I'm not doing my job if I don't take that. And that's why I did this.
I think that's such an inspiring place to leave it. If we listen to the public health officials, if we listen to the data, if we listen to the science, we can protect our communities. Thank you so much for joining us, Mayor Broderson. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Well, Muscatine may have been the first city in Iowa to issue a mask up policy, but we know it also won't be the last. If Governor Reynolds won't show leadership in this moment, then local leaders are going to step up and to do the right thing. As the largest city in Iowa, it makes sense that Des Moines would be the next place to mask up with a universal face covering policy, but we still have not seen leadership from city officials to keep residents safe. For more on this topic, we turn to Cherie Mortiz. Cherie is an Iowa CCI member from Des Moines. She's a neighborhood grassroots activist who gets stuff done, and she is a retired educator. Cherie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, John.
Yeah, so I wonder if you could give me your immediate reactions to Mayor Broderson's actions, to her response in her local community. Why is an action like this important for local communities?
You know, I just have to applaud her courage. She's demonstrating real responsible leadership. And I think that she is embracing the moral imperative here to do the right thing. And that's why it's important. You know, there's a duty to serve your constituency. And that involves a moral imperative that requires that our leadership and our city officials protect us and our families. And that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah. Well, in Des Moines, you're not far from the State House. What kind of COVID response have you seen from the governor's office?
You know, there has just been really a disappointing approach. Essentially, it's voluntary. We know that a voluntary approach doesn't work. And we've seen that certainly in terms of our water quality issue here in the state of Iowa. That's a voluntary approach. We now have 750 polluted water bodies. Many of our water bodies cannot be used for their intended purpose. So her approach has been irresponsible and reckless because we have unmitigated infection and contagion spread. And so much of this could have been avoided just in terms of what the data and the science is showing us. If she would have taken that responsible, bold step and issued a statewide order mandate for face covering. You know, it's just really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the places that we've seen that voluntary as opposed to a mandatory approach fail has been in our public schools, right? Just recently, we saw the governor refuse to mandate masks for our kids, for our teachers, for our school staff in public schools. Tell me a little bit about what seeing that response was like for you as a retired educator, particularly.
You know, it's really scary. And just even talking to some of my teacher friends, there's a lot of concern because it's in fact a very vulnerable population. It's going to be very difficult to control movement patterns, and so it's putting teachers at risk, support staff. You know, you have people preparing food. You have a lot of other support staff in terms of counseling services and social workers. There's people coming and going. But, you know, we are putting our children at risk because we are at a contagion level that really, I think it's premature. I have to applaud, you know, teachers who are trying to figure this out. But I don't think there's a safe solution to this at this point.
Yeah. I think one of the things, like we were saying earlier, it's been impressive to see teachers, local, city leaders, county leaders step up at where the governor refuses to act. So I'm curious where you're at locally. What have you seen from folks in your area? I'm thinking the Polk County Board of Supervisors. I'm thinking the Des Moines City Council.
Yeah, well, I think the Polk County Board of Supervisors really has been disappointing. They haven't really weighed in very heavily. Supervisor Matt McCoy did voice concern in mid-May when the governor insisted on reopening. He felt it was premature, that our infection and contagion rates were still too high. But in terms of a concerted policy statement, they haven't done that, and that's disappointing because they could exert considerable pressure on our city council and on our city mayor, who has not taken action.
Yeah, what would you like to see the city council or Mayor Frank County do in this moment in terms of
to see the mayor of Des Moines show leadership, and I would like to see him and the city council give an order for universal face coverings throughout the metro region. I have no idea why he wasn't first out of the chute to begin with, when this is the capital of our state and we have the highest population. And, you know, their inability, their lack of willingness really to embrace the authority that they have. I want to see them embrace the authority that they own today. And I want them to give a Mask Up Iowa order today and match, you know, the mayor in Muscatine, who is showing real leadership.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing to hear you say this because there is a template at this point right now, right? We know there's a way
Exactly.
they can do it. It has
Right.
been done. It would not be hard to replicate. So,
Right.
one thing that Iowa CCI talks a lot about, one thing you talk a lot about as an Iowa CCI leader is the need for a people-centered response. And I'm curious, what does that mean to you? If you could break that down for our audience, what does a people-centered COVID response look like in this moment?
Sure. A people-centered, people-first approach is what, that's our approach on lots of our campaigns, lots of our issue campaigns, is we put people first. And, it's just sort of disappointing to see the governor assume that that you have to totally protect business as if that isn't really the foundation of a successful business is people. And the fact of the matter is that taking care of people, taking care of their health, goes hand in hand with a healthy economy. And for that to escape her is beyond my imagination. But when you put people first, and you support families, and you support all families, and you're giving workers the proper PPE and the opportunity to shelter in place if they can't do it at home. I mean, there are just an incredible number of things that could have been put in place to take care of people so that they could have safely done their job. And then to simply support them and their families. It's just really discouraging. But, the fact of the matter is that not mandating face coverings is just continuing to steamroll Des Moines and steamroll this state. And that's what's sad.
Yeah, I think it definitely is sad. The fortunate thing, I think, is that some of the good folks like you who are out there fighting the good fight are trying to wedge themselves in under that steamroller, right?
Right.
What's giving you hope right now in this moment? What response have you seen in the streets, in your communities, that's bringing you a sense of joy or hope about where Des Moines is going?
Well, I think the real heroes are everyday people. Certainly in our community here in Des Moines, you're seeing our food banks that are taking care of families, lots of volunteers in the city through our food banks, lots of people out keeping track of our homeless population, giving them an opportunity to shelter in place, getting them medical care when they need it. Lots of people were, right from the get-go, people were making masks and giving them away. And so it was neighbor taking care of neighbor. And, that's really a hopeful thing on a daily basis that we see. The other hopeful thing is that at Iowa CCI, we just started a petition drive, Mask Up Iowa. And, already we have over 3,600 signatures. At least that's what I heard yesterday. I don't know what it's at precisely right now, but I'm sure it's way over that. So it shows that there is broad-based support for a universal mask up policy, here in our community. And I don't think that we need to be shy about it. I think that we need to shout it from the rafters. And that's what we do at Iowa CCI. We go big and bold.
Yes, we do. Well, thanks so much, Cherie, for coming on. I so appreciate talking to you all the time.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So let's hope that the Polk County Board of Supervisors, Des Moines City Council, Mayor Frank County, and local leaders all across the state step up and do the right thing to protect residents. Iowans, if you're interested in joining CCI's work to mask up Iowa, you can find out more about our work at staysafeiowa.com. There you can sign our Mask Up Iowa petition, which Cherie was correct, has jumped just in a day. We're now closing in on close to 4,000 Iowans. We're calling on Governor Reynolds to do the right thing and issue a statewide face covering policy. Until she does, Iowans are at risk of further community spread. Also, don't forget to share a mask selfie with the Mask Up Iowa hashtag, letting us know why you mask up to keep your communities safe. Again, that's staysafeiowa.com and hashtag MaskUpIA. Remember, Iowa, stay in place, maintain space, cover your face, and organize for better communities. For Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement and CCI-TV, I'm John Noble, signing off.